I got so sick in my head. I was thinking about what songs they should play at my funeral. I was thinking about who should sit where, like just crazy, fantasizing about the most insane things. And November 19th, 2019, I put a gun in my mouth and I pulled the trigger and the gun jammed, which astronomically the odds are way like one in so many. It was a brand new gun and should have never happened. And I still feel the same feeling when I think about it, man. Like it was so crazy that I was so fucking delusional that I thought that made sense. And it was trying to kill the monster that was in my head that, was depression. And so I was given the second chance and I was so lost. I didn't know what to do. And I just said, you know what, man? You got to fight for your life and you're going to share your story and it's going to help other people.
Hello, everybody. This is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast, where we talk to top performing business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and local Winnipeg celebrities. We get to learn who they are and how they think. We get to learn their perspective about what's really going on in Winnipeg and their businesses. On today's podcast, we're fortunate enough to have Jason McLean, a Winnipeg-based author, speaker, educator, and mental health activist. Through his own battle with mental illness, he has made it his purpose to share his story to help empower others who are struggling with mental health issues and to influence others in a positive way. He encourages others to take action where their lives can transform and improve the relationship with themselves in hopes to establish connection with each other. His vision is to unite as many minds as possible with the purpose of disabling the stigma that casts a dark shadow over mental health and mental illness. Jay.
Hello, sir.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
Appreciate you being here.
I want to start off by saying your hair looks great today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I spent, pretty much all morning on it.
Wow. I did as well on mine.
Well done.
Yeah.
You wake up like that, hey?
Yeah, I do.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We both got the black shirt memo.
Yep.
It's, that's the easy one.
Yeah.
So we've known each other I first met you, 15, 17 years ago, something like that.
Yep.
And I think probably at that time you were working with kids, inner city kids.
Yep.
Probably as you do now, still the same?
Yeah, a little bit different. Back then I was working with at-risk youth, gang members. So I was working at a place called the Knoll Center, which is like they have locked residential units. Yeah. So kind of kids transitioning in and out of the court systems, and the youth center would end up there. And so we'd work with them there with the families and with court conditions, probation, all that kind of stuff, and try and rehabilitate and get them back where they should be.
Right.
But there's also other programs there. They had some assisted living programs and different things the kids can transition to with growth. So it was good. The kids I work with now are younger. I work with boys that are anywhere from about 8 to about 14. Mm-hmm. So a little bit different of approach, obviously, but equally rewarding and challenging for sure. The age of the boys that I work with, they're like sponges, so they absorb everything. My goal every time I hang out with these guys is to get them off their video games, get them away from TikTok and YouTube. Help them refocus. I try to get them out in nature as much as possible, or get them doing art or different activities that engage the creative side of the mind, but also build character and help them feel that accomplishment of, today we're going to do this. We're going to take these birdhouses. We're going to paint them. We're going to go out to Birdsville Park. We're going to hang them in trees. So there's, the stages of all these different things that help along the way. So you're hitting the creative side. We're taking some of the mental game and, putting together a plan of how we're going to do this, and then executing it, and then being able to enjoy afterwards what we've done. And they get to see what they've done. We come back to those trails later and they're like, that's my birdhouse, right?
Yeah.
And it's a
good sense of accomplishment.
It is. It's great, and at the same time, I'm really trying my best to instill this powerful sense of nature in every mind I can. Anyone that talks to me, if there was a jar that you put 25 cents in, that, for every time I started to talk about zoology or biology without being asked, I would be a multi-billionaire by this point in my life. Yeah. So these kids, what I always try to do is take them out into nature and let them know that they're a part of it, right? And so by giving these birdhouses, they're giving, birds a home that they can come and start, family in, right? And in simple terms for the kids to understand. And then that starts a cycle of life, and that they're being a part of that. And they can come back and now see if birds have landed in there and used it as a home. And so it promotes so many really powerful but peaceful feelings, but that they're grounded in nature. Yeah. And my father, who, was my best friend and my hero my entire life, instilled such a passion for nature with me when I was a little kid. We were poor, we were homeless, we were all kinds of things. And we always went back to nature. And for me, that's the most important giver of life is Mother Nature. And so I always try my hardest to get these kids to get out there and feel it and smell it and see it and all the beautiful things, like it's a ever changing, beautiful picture, when you're out in a forest, and the sounds, the birds and all these things, they just do so many incredible things to our minds, like the primordial instincts we have. So, working with these kids now, it's for me, it's all like ecotherapy based practice. Yeah. And, I'm basically living out my childhood as an adult. So I'm a professional kid. So for me, it's a dream come true.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
So I've had your book for 2 days.
Yep.
I got to dive in.
Okay.
When I could. I think I'm chapter 2.
Okay.
I'm through chapter 2.
Did you read the introduction?
Introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2.
Okay.
There's already a lot to talk about, as I knew that there would be, because mental illness and the conversation of mental health is, probably the biggest one that you can have there is really, when we talk about humans.
Yeah.
So that said, there's a lot to dive into, but maybe first let's give listeners a little context about who you are and where you grew up, how you grew up.
Sure. From Winnipeg, the wonderful, beautiful city of Winnipeg. I grew up all over it. As you'll find out as you read a little further into my book, I grew up in a bit of a chaotic family, and a lot of alcohol and a lot of challenges. My parents split up and divorced when I was very young, 4, 5, 6, 7. In that age is when they separated and divorced. Yeah. Lived with my dad, and like I said, the best part about my dad was for sure his nature-based passions. We were always camping, all these different things. But my dad had his challenges for sure with his temper, with violence, alcohol. And by the time I had been to about grade 5 or 6, I'd been to 7 different elementary schools. We moved around so much, and so I became very sort of nomadic. Like I was always ready for the next move, and that's been something I've carried into my adult life, and it's been very challenging. Where I can get set up somewhere, and then I get very bored almost, because I'm like, what's next? When it's like that. When's
the hammer going to drop here?
Yeah, the unregulated nervous system that I developed as a kid, because it's always going to change, right? So, but I grew up all over the place, and I was played some sports and was decent at a few of them, and I started to really develop a lot of different behaviors than a lot of the kids that I grew up with. So I was always in trouble in school. I was the teacher's worst nightmare for sure. And schools weren't set up for kids like me, and for many kids that are like me today. Unfortunately, schools, prisons, and hospitals seem to have the same type of architecture. And But so I was really challenged in school, and in grade 5, I met my match. I had rendered most teachers completely helpless and hopeless when I was in their classroom, like just pulling their hair out and didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I had this teacher named Mr. Burnett. We called him Mr. B, Aaron Burnett. He's actually a Juno-nominated children's music guy. Mm-hmm. So he would sing to us, and we did art, and we did all these things. And he just was this incredible man that saw a way to empower me. And he was the first one to ever do that. And so he made me president of the running club. So we met every morning at 7:30 in the morning before school. And Terry Fox was big at this time. And so, because I'm like 100 years old, so this was way back then. And we would run and talk, and he would exhaust me physically before school. So I'd get into school and I'd actually not be so hyperactive. And every time he saw me slipping or losing control of my anger, he just would have this gentle way of talking with me. And so I mentioned him in my book. In fact, I wrote a chapter about him in that book. And because there's so many teachers that don't do that. And I met all of them, and he has resonated with me and my entire life. And I've told so many stories about this guy to so many people. Just an incredible man. And so what ended up happening after that is they started to realize that I was pretty smart. As much as I tried to fool everyone that I wasn't. I've been playing dumb my whole life, and it's probably the smartest thing I ever did. But so they ran these series of IQ tests and different intellectual tests on me when I was in grade 6, and they thought I cheated on the first round that I did because I scored off the charts and everything except for mathematics. And I've always been challenged with just simple mathematics. And so they accused me of cheating, and that really pissed me off. And so they gave me another test, and the social worker and the child psychologist that were involved at this time, because I'd been in all kinds of trouble, gave me like an aptitude test for a university level entrance. And I scored higher on this test than the one for children. And because I was pissed off. And so I focused all my anger into like an instrument of just like pure wanting to prove them wrong, like it was just, and I did. And then so all of a sudden they wanted to talk about excelling me into like higher grades and putting me into all these academic programs. And I was like, hell no, that's not what I wanted out of this. Like, this was just, you accused me of cheating of this thing that I didn't want to do. And then you made my dad question me. And then I was, like I said, I was just like, I was like a hornet's nest, just shooken up, inside. So after that, my biggest problem is that I grew up with learning disabilities and cognitive dysfunction, and the fact that I couldn't learn things the way kids normally learn. So I would have to memorize things. And at the time, my dad was all over the place with jobs, and he was like a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman at one point. So we had these encyclopedias at home, and I didn't have a lot of other things. So I started reading them, and there's, tons of stuff. This is basically Google for people when I was a kid, my age, back in the 80s, right? In the late 70s. And so I started memorizing everything I could in these books. And that's probably what really helped me and propelled me in these tests that I did. So I think I started to really actively self-sabotage myself after that, because I didn't like that attention. It was very unfamiliar. And so I'd excel at things that interested me. If we were talking about sciences, like I love biology and biochemistry and all these different things. And I would just like explode with passion for it. But then mathematics and things that I didn't enjoy, I just would be very disruptive in the classroom, do whatever I could to get kicked out. And it got so bad that in grade 8, I was suspended more days than I went to school, and they still passed me because they're just like, we need to get him. Let's keep him going. Let's keep him going. Yeah. And I started, getting into drinking and drugs around that same age. And I was living on the streets by the time I was in grade 10. And I just had gotten so uncontrollable and violent, and and I was full of so much anger, and I could never understand why I was like these. I had these like, I just hulked, man. Like I just exploded. And I always felt bad after, like I felt so bad and so much guilt and shame. And I would go hide and run away. And, the more I ran away, the longer I was there and doing things. And then I come back. And so by the time I was around 14 or 15, my family was seeing this, we'll call him a renowned child psychologist or psychiatrist here in Manitoba. And so his takeaway was tough love. He was like, don't let him in the house when he comes back. Don't give him like, don't do anything to help him and all these different things. And so, it was on both sides of my mom and my dad who, both had remarried and had partners were, sort of bought into this. And so it just got awful. And, my sister would sneak me in the house once in a while, but most of the time I ended up on the streets, or if I couldn't find someone's house to crash at, I slept in cars. I broke into half-built houses. I slept in community clubs. I slept for 2 weeks in Pan Am Pool under the second floor stairs. And like there was a custodian there that knew I was there, man. He was leaving me chocolate bars and bags of chips, brought me comic books, till eventually they caught me, like someone else caught me and kicked me out. So, and I was downtown and like, awful things, man, like just crazy stuff I was exposed to at such a young age. And I started to get mixed up with, I guess, like-minded bad kids and got myself in all kinds of trouble. And that took me down a very dark path. And into my adulthood, I was like two different people. I had a duality in lifestyles. I was very involved in try to be with my family and work and these different things. But the other side was a very dark, angry, violent guy. And that violence was noticed, with different people. And, I definitely went down some wrong paths, made some bad choices. As an adult, and lost a lot of friends and buried a lot of friends, unfortunately. And, I got myself involved in a lifestyle that doesn't really have a retirement program or it's either you end up dead or in jail kind of stuff. I'm sure everyone can use their imagination here. And one day I just had this epiphany, and I wanted to change my life, and I wanted to try to help kids that were like me and that didn't get a fair start at they're in the race of life, but they were started maybe a little too far back from the start line. And that mirrored my past, and I wanted to be able to help them. So I started to volunteer, and it was tough for me to get jobs in the beginning, but I did. And, I was doing that for a while, and I liked it. And then, it just kind of there's some bitter taste in my mouth from the government and the funding and the different things that were involved and the politics involved in where I worked. And so I ended up transitioning into sales. And so I got into car sales, which was a complete different thing, but I did incredible at it right out of the gate. And I had some really good mentors and some people guiding me. And, I fast tracked from a sales guy into a sales manager within like 9 months, and then into a general sales manager like a year later, and running like all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I loved it. But unfortunately with that, it developed this ego that was out of control. And my whole challenge, my whole life, Dan, is I've been terrified to be alone with my thoughts. I've been terrified to be alone with myself. So I always had to distract myself with buying stuff, having everything or looking like I had everything and all these different things. And so that went really well, but then it all came crashing down. And because when your ego goes out of control, it becomes difficult to listen to other people. It becomes difficult to continue learning because you think you got it all figured out, which I did think I had it all figured out. And I went for a real tumble downwards really quick. And in my 40s, I'm 52 now, which I still can't believe. But around when I was about 45, 46, things turned really bad for me. I had got a really bad name in the car business. I was a bulldog. I'd do anything to be the best, and I didn't care who I hurt along the way. And I forgot about the people, and I forgot about myself. I forgot about a lot of things, like the core values of what makes things work properly. So I just kind of fell apart, and I started drinking heavily, and I was doing drugs once in a while, and that turned into too much. And I started to lose things. I couldn't afford everything I had because I was making some good money for a long time. And all of a sudden, my SRT Grand Cherokee was too much for me to pay. And, I couldn't pay for all kinds of things, and so I lost everything. And with that loss, I was stripped away of everything that my ego kind of used as my force field to stay away from, dealing with what was the real issue, which was my depression. And I was, like I said, I was drinking, and I just spiraled, man, so quick. And, I went from joking about killing myself to plotting it out and thinking about it, once or twice a day, to thinking about it 500-600 times a day, like just complete remuneration of how I'm going to do it. I got so sick in my head. I was thinking about what songs they should play at my funeral. I was thinking about who should sit where, like just crazy, fantasizing about the most insane things. And November 19th, 2019, I put a gun in my mouth, and I pulled the trigger, and the gun jammed, which astronomically, the odds are way like one in so many. It was a brand new gun and should have never happened. And I still feel the same feeling when I think about it, man. Like it was so crazy that I was so fucking delusional that I thought that made sense, for everyone else, not just for myself. And it was self-preservation for like Jason McLean, the image, and it was trying to kill the monster that was in my head that, was depression. And so I was given this second chance, and I was so lost. I was at sea, just with like in waves, just pounding on me. I didn't know what to do. And I just said, you know what, man, you got to fight for your life, and you're going to share your story, and it's going to help other people. And so that's what I did. I fought my way through the hardest things I've ever had to fight, and they're all in here. And I developed a whole bunch of systems that worked for me. And you know what? I just immersed myself in learning, man. I read every book I could. I watched podcasts. I watched speakers, everything. Anything that some things that I benefited from because it was so far from what would work for me, but it helped me, recalibrate that, what would work for me, and, so I did that. And the craziest part of all of it was then I was terrified of being alone. And then COVID hit, and I was forced to be I lived alone. My family was nuts. They were like brainwashed, though. They were like, you can't come over. So for like months, I was completely isolated. My gym shut down. I couldn't do anything. And work was like, no.
Every outlet ever.
Yeah. And so I was forced to like, what do I do here? Like, I have to do this, or I'm going to end my life again. And I put the work in, man. And that's the bottom line is I woke up every day at like sunrise, and I would run I hate running. I hate running more than anything, really. And I would run every morning, and then come home, and then write and study and read. And I'd be alone and awake as long as possible. And I remember talking to people, they were like, so you're afraid to be alone. So you'd get up at 4 a.m.
Be alone.
And to be alone all by yourself for like the entire morning, day, evening. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, isn't that crazy? I'm like, it is. It's the craziest thing I've ever done, because it's the most terrifying thing I had to do. And so within that time, I would sit in complete silence. Like I just learned to train my mind and all these things. And I started writing everything out, and then I was like, this is a book waiting to happen. And I've always wanted to write books my entire life. I've had the gift for gab. I've always been able to talk, have a very creative mind, but the insecurities and the self-doubt and all those things always told me, when are you going to write it? And even when I was writing this book, they always kept creeping in, no matter how powerful I was moving forward and my momentum, would continue to carry me. There was these times when it was just like, people are going to laugh at you, man. Like people are going to make fun of you. Like you're going to tell them the most vulnerable and weakest parts of your life. Mm-hmm. They're going to think you're an idiot, and then, so I had to battle through that constantly because it's been pounded into us our whole lives. Right. So anyways, for about a year, I just became basically like a Navy SEAL in my training, like mentally, like physically, it was insane. And, but like the best insane ever, compared to the opposite of like bad insane, I guess.
Yeah.
And I started putting this thing together, and then I wrote this book, One Drop of Water. And, I edited, it took me about a year to write and about 3 months of editing. And then I remember I was sitting with my girlfriend, and she was like cheerleading me and supporting me, and every time I'd start to get down about things, she's like, this is amazing, like just continue, right? So we're sitting there, and it was the most wild moment, because all I had to do was click this button on my laptop to send in the book to get published. So the manuscript's edited, everything's done, the cover's ready. I just have to click, and then it goes into the world, and what happens, right? And I just remember hearing all of it again, all the demons coming back, you're not good enough. People are going to laugh at you. Blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, not today. Boom. And I clicked it, and it was just the most empowering feeling in the world. And then I sat there and waited for 24 hours, waiting for it to populate on Amazon and Kindle and all these different things. But so that's kind of my life in a really quick nutshell. And so my book, One Drop of Water, is about my life and my struggles throughout with addictions, depression, anxiety, PTSD. I was born with brain damage, so there's been some challenges with that. So that's kind of incorporated into all that. And the book basically is a roadmap of how I navigated through all these different peaks and valleys of adversity in my life, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And it's the title it has two meanings. One drop of water, as if you read in the first chapter, the end is when I say, that one drop of water leaves my face as soon as that was the signal for me to end my life. Because, when you are completely lost, for some reason that makes sense. And then also on the positive side, though, the one drop of water, from a book I read called The Power of One, and it's about apartheid in South Africa, and there's boxers, and I won't go through all of it, but this one white kid that's trained by African boxers, he wants to bridge the gap between racism, and so he writes this paper about a waterfall, and it takes one drop of water to start a waterfall. And what he's trying to do is say, if one person can change racism, others will follow like a waterfall will. And so I adopted that same sort of principle and ideology into action, right? It's just one drop of water starts a waterfall. So if I do this and I talk about my story, others will talk about their story, and others will share, and others will benefit. And so that's sort of the philosophy behind it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there for us to talk about. First, though, let's get this thing there.
Yep.
One drop of water.
There it is.
First of a few
books.
Let's just go first.
That's
right?
First. Yeah.
Okay. Plans to do more?
Yeah. So that book has, I believe, 19 chapters. And so 17 of them will become their own book. So there's a chapter in there that you'll get to. It's called the Monarch Butterfly Effect. And that chapter is about understanding our purpose and how understanding our purpose creates our transformation. And so I cite the Monarch butterfly and the butterfly effect and bring it all together. And so that's my next book. That one will be out May 31st. And yeah. And then, but each of these chapters is sort of its own topic of mental illness or mental health. And then from there, I'm going to deep dive into each one as its own book.
I like it.
So yeah, 17 books would be all of them. This one took me a longer time to write. Like my dad died a year and a half ago of cancer, and that definitely was a setback. When I got pretty dark again after that, obviously, losing my best friend, my dad. And then just as I was feeling like I was getting it back into it, I was in a really severe motorcycle accident last August. I was riding on the highway going 110, and I hit some guys did some asphalt patch, and they left a huge hump, and I hit it and my bike exploded. I rolled for 120 meters. And by all means, I should have been dead or paralyzed. And again, another miracle, which the Monarch butterfly effect is all about understanding miracles and believing in them. And even like when the fire department, the first responders got there, like no one could believe I was standing there. My helmet didn't have a scuff on it. I log rolled for like at 110 kilometers an hour, 340 feet. My bike was in pieces. Like it was insane. And but I remember after it happened, I was lying there. I was so pissed off after I finally stopped rolling and spinning, and I was like dizzy, and I was just like, but I was so angry, but I was so scared to try to move because I didn't want. I'm like, okay, I'm alive. Yeah. And just before I launched, I just remember hearing a voice saying, "You're not done yet." And it was my dad's voice. And I believed him. And so when I was lying there, I'm like, I'm not dead. And but like I just was like, like just move your fingers, man. Like,
small steps here.
Yeah. And so my hands moved, and I'm like, okay, and I could move my feet. And then when I was like I could move and I stood up, I was covered in blood and my skin was ripped off everywhere and all gross stuff. But this elbow looked like a knee. It was like out to here, and this arm was broken. But I was just like, I was mad that I wasn't like, I'm like, what? I can move. And so, but everyone was stunned, and like they strapped me to the hardboard, the neck brace, the whole thing, because they thought I was in such severe shock that my spine was broken because it was like swollen out and curved, like it looked like. They're just like, and so, the guys, like the ambulance guys, like the paramedic dudes, like, man, your vitals seem so good. And I'm like, I'm fine, man. Like, this is all theater, dude. Like, I can go home. And they had a trauma surgery team waiting for me there. So they cut all my clothes off and all these things. And like, they run me through the CT, and then they're like, we're going to do it again, and they're like, and then x-rays, and I had internal bleeding from a valve in my heart into my stomach, which is fairly common apparently from really traumatic impact. Okay. But by all means, like every doctor, every nurse, every medical professional I talked to, there was just like, there's no other explanation than this, and it's a miracle that you're alive. They did say that like my musculature and obviously my health was what saved me. They said that most men, like, my age, probably going 40 or 60K, would have been dead. So if you listening out there and you need a reason to start working out, there it is.
Yeah. If you own a motorcycle.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so yeah, the next book, The Monarch Butterfly Effect, I'm super excited to get it out. A little bit like One Drop of Water definitely has some darkness to it for sure. And this does too. Like I do some flashback writing back into my life for to give the relevance of the experience that I'm trying to, implement a teaching about or a strategy that worked for me. And this book sort of comes from after my suicide attempt to where I am now. And so, people see me on social media and they think, I'm always doing well, but I've had, this doesn't go away. I still get riddled with all types of insecurities and doubts, and the demons, I call them the shadow monster, and the shadow monster is always waiting right there. And if I was to, fall into some bad habits and start doing dumb things, it's going to be there. So I have to stay sharp. And this is how I've stayed sharp. And I went through, like I said, losing my father, which was the hardest thing in my life. I stopped drinking alcohol almost 3 years ago, and I didn't drink or do anything to hurt myself or hurt anyone else when I was very hurt and down doing that. And same thing after my motorcycle accident, the same thing, like it took me months to recover physically and mentally even more so. And so the same thing, like, so I still go through these struggles, although I get on social media and I try to promote as much positivity as I can and encouragement. But people have to understand the reality is that life ain't fair, man. So you got to be ready and you got to be always putting in the work. And so my next book really is the next step in sharing that information with people.
Like I said, I think that this topic, as far as mental health, but also, that is life. Right? The mind is life. And so it doesn't surprise me that, you could write 17 books and probably still have more to say. You mentioned the monster in the shadows.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to my mind, like I've heard it spoken about in many different contexts. In religion, it's the devil.
Yep.
Right? Most of the time.
Yep.
In personal development, it's this, whether it's the insidious fear or the doubt or
ego.
The ego that's constantly chirping at you and trying to pull you back to comfort or anything like that. Yeah. Right. So when, like, in the context of mental health and mental illness, when did you finally see this? When did you were you able to finally separate yourself from it and be aware of it and be the observer rather than just being inside of it?
That's a great question. It really is. And in this book, I talk about it, and in my life, what I had to do is I took an autopsy of myself. And so an autopsy usually is performed on someone after they die. And what they do is they open them up and they try to understand what sickness or illness or disease or what was the cause of the thing. So, I didn't die, but so I just kind of took that idea and so I performed this mental autopsy where I opened everything up on myself. And what I really learned to do through trial and error was I would write everything down, everything. Like, just, I didn't care if it sounded stupid. I didn't care if it was profound and poetic. Whatever came in here, I just started writing it down. And putting it on paper, first of all, is very therapeutic and cathartic. Like, just getting it out. You're physically removing it. You're writing it with pen. Typing doesn't do the same thing for me, but so writing it with a pen or pencil, whatever. And so I started to really look at these things, and I started to look at the connections between a lot of them. So I'd write out, like, for an example, I'd write out a list of fears. And then I'd write out, why do I have that fear? Like, what caused it? So I'd do some, I'd go back in my own history, and I'd look at, what events or scenarios or situations or experience caused these fears. And then were they failure based? Were they taught to me? Like, was it imposed on me because of abuse or trauma or whatever I went through as a kid? And I started to learn how to separate the fact from the feeling. And that is where I was able to really reestablish a new relationship with myself, because we tell ourselves lies all the time. And we think the same thoughts over and over again. Like, basically anywhere between 80 to 90% of our thoughts that we think today, we thought yesterday, day before. So you got to go really far back to start being at 50% different thought patterns, right? So we remunerate constantly. And so I had to learn how to rewire my brain, right? My brain had been hardwired all wrong through so many negative experiences, and then how I would talk to myself so I came up with strategies that I would create this. I do this autopsy, or a moral inventory is another popular term. And I'd write out these things, and then I'd, separate them by, okay, these are all feelings. These are all reactions. These are all these are all the events. And then I put them up all over my walls in my spare bedroom. And I started to look at them all, and I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of paper, and I had them taped up. And then I started to put them in sections. Like, this is like, why am I so angry? And I'd write it down. I'm like, because I'm scared. I'm a scared little kid that got beat up all the time as a child, that got abandoned, and all these different things. And I had to go through the hard shit. Like, there is no easy way to do this. And I wrote down, the most raw things in the most raw form. And I started, okay, so that happened. So that's why I'm scared. So that's why I act overconfident. That's why I do this. And that's why I drink too much, or all these different things. And I started to connect them all. And after about 2 weeks of doing this, my entire bedroom was covered in papers, all connected. On the floor, ceiling. It was craziness. But it all made sense to me. It became like a constellation of my thoughts, my behaviors, and that. And what it did is it showed me my own universe. And by universe, I mean YOU, like the universe, right? Like, and it became compelling because it told the stories of everything. Like, it just, when I was able to remove these feelings, because again, like I said earlier, we tend to tell ourselves stories, and as we use the same internal language over and over again of like, like, it's not fair that this happened to me, and my parents did this to me, and I got screwed over by this person, and that person broke my heart. We keep doing that. All we're doing is we're fueling that fire of darkness, right? So the darkness, that's a bigger shadow, and the shadow monster can reign supreme. And so I took all those things one day, and I just had this like moment where I could everything just fit, and I understood it all. And then I just started writing about it. And when I'll tell you two real crazy stories real quick. So when I pulled the trigger, and I thought I died. And what I think happened is I was trapped in this weird state of consciousness. I think what happened is my brain physically shut down to die, but my mind or my soul was still there. And I was like in this sea of complete darkness, endless, cold, suffocating. And it's like waking up from a dream almost, but and I was terrified, and I saw a vision of a little bit of light, and it was dancing around. It was this young girl, and it ends up to be a friend of our Jay Miller's daughter, which is the weirdest thing in the world. And she comes up and asks me these crazy questions like, what are you doing? And where are you going? And it still just rips me apart. And with that, I just snapped back into life. But before I did that, I had all these crazy visuals, like fireworks igniting across the sky in my mind. And there were all these weird things, like a pair of pants on fire, me holding a frog, a monarch butterfly, a samurai, like all these different things. But those all end up becoming, what I realized is all these things that were all around my room and all these pages tied into every one of these images. And that's how I came up with the chapters in this book. And it was crazy to me. And now the second part of the story I'll tell you is, at that time I was living in a nice apartment. And so I had this whole room connected with papers and tape and all like crazy stuff. And so I hear a knock on my door, and in my second bedroom was a contained furnace, and the guys were there to change the furnace filters and do a reading on the furnace. And I was just like, I totally forgot they gave me a memo that they're coming up. And I'm like, yeah, I can do it for you guys. Because I didn't want them to see, my montage, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the guy's like, no, man, I got to do a reading. It'll just take 2 seconds. And I'm like, yeah, let's take 2 seconds. Come on in. So he comes in and opens the door, and he looks around. He's like, whoa. And he's looking around the room at all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Hey. And he's just like, what is this? And I'm like, it's just a school project or whatever. He's like, you know what it reminds me of? And I'm like, tell me. He's like, when you watch those movies and then like find like that secret room, like in a basement, And then they open it up and it's like a serial killers that's in like all their victims and all that. I'm like, yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. Like, thanks, man. It's kind of like that. I'm like, you can get out now. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then he's like, can I take a picture of it? And I'm like, no.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah. But anyways, just to lighten the mood a little bit. But so that was the biggest thing. And so with that, I started to carry out the practice of, I needed to change my internal language because I talked awfully to myself. I would talk if I was talking to you and you told me, Jay, I'm going through some crazy stuff, man. Like, this is happening, I would support you and talk to you in the best way I could. And I would say all these things, but to myself, I would do the polar opposite. The complete antithesis. I would just rip myself apart. I'm like, you're a piece of shit. All you do is hurt people. You're no good. All you do is screw things up. You're a failure, all these things, and beat myself up horribly. So I needed to change that. That's one of the biggest things. And that's one of the biggest things I'll share with anybody all the time is when I started to, once I took away those feelings from all and looked at the facts, I was then able to go and look at, okay, well, I started doubting myself because, I never thought I was tough enough or big enough for my dad. Because my dad was a big powerlifter, bodybuilder guy, biker, all the things that I ended up growing up into. But, I never was good enough for him. And I had to realize that. And that wasn't me. That was my dad. And I'm not saying anything bad about my dad because he later accepted me, but my dad was just set in a certain way. And that's how it is. But, and then so I started to learn how to, not punish myself for all these things anymore and learn how to talk to myself like I was my own friend. I started a relationship with myself. And so, but to do that, you have to be blatantly hardcore honest with yourself. And you have to write down all the worst things. I wrote down on a piece of paper, would I want to be my friend? And I wrote down all the reasons why I wouldn't want to be. And I wrote down all the reasons why I would want to be. And in the beginning, it was 3 pages of why I wouldn't want to be versus half a page of why I would be. 6 months later, complete opposite. Because what I started to do was write down 2 positives for every negative about myself, about other people, about like that annoying person at work that when you ask them, hey, how you doing today? And they're just like, well, and then go on a monologue for 15 minutes and you're just like, I'm never going to get that time back. Right. I would be like, okay, I don't really like them, but they are good at this and they have nice shoes, whatever it was. Like even just 2 simple positives, and then learning that, but to do that to yourself is really important. And so that was basically like how I went from being an observer in my life and being a victim to becoming the victor of it and creating. So when we're in a victim mindset, we're constantly we're in the momentum of other things that are doing it for us. When we are in the victor state, when we are doing that, we are creating our own momentum. And that's the biggest thing. So what I had to do was find that way, because my whole life I had just been always like waiting for someone to come save me, waiting for something to get better, waiting for that better job to land in my, never doing anything to make it better for myself. And then when it didn't work out, I always complained and bitched and blamed other people. It was never me. How could it be me? I mean, what if, and then so when I was able to change that mindset and by mindset, I mean, set my mind. It's a fun buzzword that everybody uses, but truly to set your mind into, a completely different way of seeing things changes everything, right? So it starts with your internal language, your internal dialogue. It starts with being honest with yourself. And then it comes down to learning how to see things differently, taking yourself out of it, taking your ego out and going like, it's not always about me. And when you can do that, you become able to believe. And when you can believe in things, and including yourself, it all changes.
Here's some of the stuff I heard.
Okay.
The first one ties into my license plate, which often gets misconstrued because it's DTFW.
Okay. Yeah.
So if people are laughing at my license plate, I can probably figure out why.
Yeah.
However, it stands for do the fucking work.
Yep.
And that's the big one, is that everybody wants different things in their lives, and the people that are complaining about it aren't doing the work to get it.
100%.
one of the things that comes to mind too is with mental illness. I was probably 18, maybe going on between 18 and 20 when my brother first started showing signs of mental illness. And of course, we've never had it in our family. I never understood it. Never had anyone to deal with, right? So my thing was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Smarten up.
Yep.
And the concept of the leaky boat, I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Enlighten me.
So when I've done a lot of personal development, I've been part of groups of like very, very high earning or high successful entrepreneurs and businessmen and stuff like that. Yeah. And one of the things is you can be out in the ocean and you can stay afloat and you can get where you want to go until you start having leaks in your boat. And one of the mental illness is holes in that boat, right? And so a lot of people say, well, you know, if that guy could just do this or do this, he'd be fine. Well, I keep thinking about it, and a lot of people actually don't have that ability because they still have leaks in their boat, right? And so I don't know, and you've seemed to find ways to cope with a lot of the things that are going on, right? That allows you to not only patch it up, and then now you're flourishing in context to where you were, right? Sure. I really like what you said about victimhood. Victimhood is, I mean, there's zero power in it, right? And so taking responsibility for not only your own mindset, your own actions, but taking responsibility for your own life and the results that you have is incredible. I remember when I went through my first training, and I had to write down and tell everyone around me the worst thing that I've ever done. Okay. And that shit is like, if you've never thought about it, or you've never said it out loud, or you've never shared that with anyone like that, there can be some powerful things in even what you did in writing stuff out and getting it out, right? And writing it down and making it real. Getting stuff out is like, it's one of the terms was pain shared is pain divided. Yep. And when you have that much pain, to even just tell somebody about it is taking it away from you. It's allowing somebody else to just take a little bit of that from you and be able to help you with it. Yeah. You also mentioned not changing people. You mentioned your dad. And what I like about that is people are people. Yep. Right? And the only person you can change is yourself. And you can deal with how you deal with their actions and their words, or you give them the power and you're a victim. Yep. And so,
I mean, we all come across people that, like you said, they're not going to be how we want them to be or act how we want them to be. So it's up to us to, you can, be proactive and active on it and control your thoughts and feelings. But it all comes down to how you choose to see things. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I really like what you said about the stories you tell yourself. That to me, that was probably the biggest thing in my life that shifted things. And I think, I mean, everyone gets to a point where, I shouldn't say everyone that changes drastically gets to a point where the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of what they're experiencing. And so mine was from my divorce. Mine was from getting to a point where like I thought I was getting somewhere, and then my entire world was, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And not only that, but my job, the people around me, like I was doing things that I thought I should do, and made me really dive into kind of what my life was. And just like you said, we are, one, what we do consistently, and two, the stories we tell ourselves, because they become truth eventually.
Yes, they do.
And so my ability, I learned I'm trying to, I couldn't learn it by myself. So kudos to you. There's nothing like, it didn't make sense. Somebody had to put those Lego pieces together for me, because it didn't come to me.
Yeah.
And I learned ways to process and analyze and then challenge all of those stories that I was telling myself.
Yeah.
And then just figure out, well, based on what I want, what story do I have to tell myself?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to go.
Sure.
Right. Because our minds are so powerful that we can create reality based on what we tell ourselves. Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Which to me is that's the ultimate power in life. There was something we mentioned about purpose. Mm-hmm. So purpose became popular, a few years ago, we'll say, 5, 6, 7, but social media has really pushed it, about, finding your purpose and big in the personal development world. You talk about purpose as well. And, when was the thought or the conversation about purpose, about discovering it, or just living with a purpose?
Well, I believe that most people that deal with depression or anxiety don't have purpose. And what I mean by that is, what we're taught is purpose. You got to find your life's purpose. You have to, so it's this huge, long view of a purpose, right? Like, and it's this big, huge, monumental purpose. And that's great. Dream big, think big, act big, do all of it. But for me, what created such success for me, was I realized that through most of my life, I had no purpose. I had a horrible relationship with myself, and I was constantly depressed and stuck in my past. And so I started reading and listening to different speakers, and there was one Dr. Joe Potenza, brilliant guy, neurologist, and really big on neuroplasticity and all these different things. And I really started liking a lot of the things he was talking about. And from that, what I gathered was, if we can do small daily actions that are different, we can rewire our brains that are hardwired. So if I had no purpose before, is because I wasn't really doing anything. And I looked at purpose like, well, what if I was to be able to create purpose in everything I did? So that I wrote out a list at the beginning of a day. I used to call it, I still do, I call it a battle plan. And that battle plan was made up of a bunch of actions that were under the umbrella of self-discipline that work towards purpose. So, because what I truly believe is, if you have purpose, then you are current in the moment. So you no longer can be controlled by the past and the uncertainty of the future. Depression and anxiety are the exact same thing. They're the fear of lack of control of either the past or the future, and how you let them take you prisoner in the current moment, so you're helpless. So if I could create purpose for myself in the moment, that means I'm present in the moment, and now I'm active. And then to tap onto what you said about being able to, create things with our minds and our thoughts, what I started to do was I started to believe so hard in something that I wanted, I would create the memory that had already happened in my mind and attach feelings to it and like live it out like a play almost in my mind. And you know what started happening, Lieutenant Dan? Those things started coming true. True story. This book, all the things that I've done, all the things that I've wanted to accomplish, have all happened because of that. But to get there, I had to create purpose, and I had to create a directional purpose every day. So instead of always focusing on, okay, my purpose is this, and my purpose is to share my story, my purpose is to help other people that become that voice for the voiceless, right? That, and that with stigma around mental health and mental illness, it's very predominant that people are afraid to speak, right? So in that though, I created this battle plan or an action plan where I could continually recreate purpose constantly. And by doing that, I'm empowering myself to stay present, to stay focused, and to stay productive. And it doesn't allow me time to sit and feel sorry for myself about all the shit that happened to me in my past. It doesn't allow me time to sit there and worry about things that probably aren't even going to happen in the future and worry about them and drive myself crazy because I'm too busy doing it. So when you have that purpose right in front of you and you can grab onto it, you're in that moment. You're creating purpose, and that is power. It's peaceful power because it's controllable, it's malleable, it's moldable, it's all the beautiful things. And when you get to that thing and you say, well, my purpose today is to do this, this, and this, and I need to accomplish these to get there, then you do that, you feel great, you've done it, but then you can do it again and again and again, right? And so it's really easy for people to like things and want things when things are going well for them. Everyone in the world had an attitude of gratitude when they were doing great. I couldn't hear it enough on social media and make me want to barf in my mouth. And then the second that things got difficult, what happened? They had no gratitude anymore. They had, all their posts and all these things changed about, how things were because life got hard. When we create purpose for ourselves, when life gets hard, we still stay focused, we still stay positive, and we find the way through it because that becomes purpose. It becomes the next purpose, right? Like, what do I need to do to get through this? And it takes you right out of that victim mindset because, again, you're too busy moving and grooving in the moment, right? And you're creating. When we're creating, we're doing things. And back to another thing that I wanted to touch on really quick. You brought up change. And see, when you strive for more purpose in your life, you're looking for more change. And change is the most powerful learning tool there is. Because the more we adapt, the more we evolve, the more we change, the more we learn. We do all these incredible things, but we've been taught our whole life, don't change, stay in that job you hate for 25 years, and don't do this because it might get hard. And, to me, I'm all about change. I think change is the most incredible thing. I want to learn everything. I want to fail. I want to fall. I want to get back up. I want to figure it out, and so for me, embracing change is part of that tie-in to creating purpose. When we create purpose, we create meaning, right? Every moment becomes meaningful when you're doing something, right? And so that's it for me with purpose. Like, it's just, for me, it's an everyday thing. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is I do a bunch of weird breathing things and I sing and I do all these crazy things. My girlfriend thinks I'm nuts. I talk in different languages if that's what's like in my brain. And then I give thanks and I tell the universe and I tell God and I tell everything what I'm going to do to make the world better that day. And I look at every single new day as a new life. It's a totally new life. You know what? And in this life I get today, I can create whatever I want to happen. That's purpose. That purpose takes me out of a depressed state all day long. When I was in a motorcycle accident there and I was sitting around, I was injured, I couldn't do anything. I didn't have purpose. I was starting to get depressed again. Right? Yep. So, again, once I was able to start getting back in the gym, I was able to start writing, I was able to start getting out in front of people and doing the things and volunteering and all the different things I love doing. Mm-hmm. I had purpose again. Where'd my depression go? Shadow monster gone, man. No shadow. It's all light. Yeah. Right. So that's the importance of purpose.
You're moving too fast for the shadow to catch you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Got to stay one step ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on, you're in the mental health space. You see it a lot. You talk about it a lot. You experience it yourself. And how do you feel being in it for so long? Where do you find that it would be, I would say in Winnipeg, but the community in general, mm-hmm. How do you find, or society in general, how do you find, which way do you think we're going? Do you think it's getting better? Do you think it's getting worse? Is it staying the same?
So another great question. And I have very mixed reviews on this one because there's a lot of virtue signaling out there. There's a lot of, hey, like, let's talk, let's this, let's that. what I look at, I'm a big metrics guy. Even though I was awful at mathematics, I fell in love with metrics and statistics later in life. And so
Because they don't lie.
that's what I was just about to say. The numbers don't lie. So statistically, in Canada, first of all, suicide is in the top 10 reasons, causes of death. Depression is the number one leading cause of disability in our country. On average, about 4,500 people take their lives in Canada a year. It works out to about 12 a day. This doesn't include drug overdoses and, you know, all the unknown things. That number has not changed in years. It's gotten worse after all the lockdowns and all the idiotic things that came on with COVID. And it was punishing for so many people, right? And it destroyed lives and it killed people. So I look at the numbers worldwide. Right now, there's, you know, an average of about a million and a half suicides. So one every about 27 seconds worldwide. 70% of those are men. 74% of them are male in Canada. Sadly, the number that is the worst are boys aged 10 to 14, which is really scary and very sad. I look at numbers like how many mental health nurses per population. So it's about one mental health nurse for 100,000 Canadians. I don't think that number works very well, personally. Our mental health budgets are horrific. They're in the lowest in the G7 countries, but the governments will love to showcase all these different things, but do nothing.
Yep. What do you say in Ontario? They're about 1.5 billion short.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's just crazy, but we can donate billions of dollars to wars and all these other things, but we can't take care of our own people.
Sure.
You know, there are homeless people more than ever, drug addicts more than ever, suicides more than ever. So to me, statistically, we are doing worse.
Yeah.
However, I will say that on the positives, I believe that the stigma the dark cloud has gotten lighter. That was a really big purpose for me. Was I wanted to lift that stigma. I wanted people to understand it. And that's why I ripped my life open in that book. And when I speak in front of kids or schools, or whether I'm at at a organization or whatever it is where I'm speaking, I do the same thing. I don't make it easy for those people. They're crying, they're laughing, they're going through a whole roller coaster of emotions with me because they need to feel it. Because when you feel it, things change, right? So I think that there's a lot of exposure, and I think that there's a lot of good people out there doing their best to make it better. And I include myself in that with honor and with hard work to get there. I can tell you that it's a very tough subject to get out there. You'd think it'd be easier, but I say a lot of the things people aren't supposed to say. I talk about suicide. I talk about what that felt like. I talk about the real stuff. Like, I don't hold back.
Yep.
And that scares a lot of people. My next book, again, will tie into a lot of it, but not quite as much as the suicide side of it. So perhaps that one will be a little more taken in without so much judgment, I suppose. You know, people are scared of it, right? And when people get scared of things, what do? They don't want to deal with it, right? They hide from it. That's the problem. So I think overall, to sum it up, I think that there are some positives. I think that there are some good initiatives out there. I think there are people contributing to help end the stigma. I think there's a lot of people sharing their stories. I think there's a lot of people milking the system and using mental health and mental illness for attention, for to be a victim, to get out of things and all the different things. And, there's a really sensitive line right now in our society where you can't speak out on certain things, or you are phobic and all these different things, right? And so there's a lot of division within certain parts of mental health and mental illness, depending on what side of the story you're on, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I will leave that one right there and leave it alone. But I in my mind, there's way more we can do.
Yeah.
And I will, till I take my last breath, I will fight and until we get there. I'm relentless in this pursuit, and I've had so many doors slammed on me, so many no's, so many, oh yeah, we're going to buy 200 books, and then never hear from them again. Oh yeah, we're going to get you to speak here. Oh, we're going to put you on the news here. And oh, I know someone that, you know what? Good for you. I'll do it myself this time. Like, if people want to help me, sure, that's great. But one of the biggest things I can tell you about getting successful in a field is a lot of the people you thought would be there cheering you on the most were the ones that abandoned you and left you behind, man. You know what? I had so many people I thought that would be so proud of me, that grew up with me, that knew me, and that would want to be all these things, and just complete opposite. It's mind-blowing how seeing someone break the chains and go after what they want and start achieving and doing and living the way they want, how fast people get jealous and envious of that. So
crabs in a bucket.
Oh man, I learned the hard way. I took it personal in the beginning. Now I don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't care. You know what? Now I'm at the point where I'm like, you don't want to be a part of it? Cool. Guess what? There's 10,000 other people that do.
That's right.
You know what? And I'll find them all. And I got people I've never met before that share my stuff more than people I've known my whole life that I thought were my closest friends.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, cool though. That's you. Cool, man. That's your vibe. Cool. I don't fit within your little, whatever it is, but
sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think there's lots of work we can do. I think everybody needs to step up and get a better understanding of mental health and mental illness. I think it's affecting more people than ever. And so by default, they have to learn, right?
That's right.
It used to be about like 1 in 10 people would be affected by a mental illness in Canada, like 20 years ago. It's 1 in 4 by the age of 40, 1 in 2. So you're going to have to deal with it. Everybody's going to have to deal with it on some different level. Alcoholism is the worst addiction there is out there. And for some reason, the one that's the most celebrated. And, that I think that, that's one that needs to be addressed in different light. And like I got a lot of buddies just like you do, like, they work, like a firefighter is a perfect example, 4 days on, 4 days off, and they're exposed to some of the hardest things in the world that you could ever imagine seeing. And there's a lot of self-medication that goes on with that. And a lot of it doesn't come out, on the positive, over long term. Right. So yeah, there's always gonna be work to do. Yeah.
There's social media, which is an extremely powerful tool.
Yep.
But with that comes the double-edged sword.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So you you use social media quite a bit to get your message across.
Yep.
Currently we're using podcast, right?
Yep.
And what I do love about that is in sharing your message, you are showing anyone listening, hopefully it's, if it reaches one person that can see Jason McLean and say, oh shit, okay, he had it worse than I did. And if he can do it, I can do it. I really like that aspect of just changing that story. Somebody's got it worse than me or had it worse than me.
100%.
And therefore I can change.
You know what I mean? There's billions of people that would trade their best day for my worst.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's billions of people in poverty in this world. It's disgusting and heartbreaking to me, right? So,
well, we see a lot of, you mentioned virtue signaling and using it for their own advantage or their own victimhood, because then they get more significance or attention, right? Yep. And that's kind of just the vicious circle, in that they're either screaming out for help and they don't know it, or it's a game of their ego and their lack of foundational principles in their own life. And what you said about life falling apart, I mean, is so akin to just a house of cards, right? And if it's built on bullshit and lies and fake stories and everything that you want to believe, one card comes out and that shit gets unraveled.
Story of my life right before I attempted to take my life, man. That's exactly what happened. My whole life was made of bullshit. It was made of lies, and it was made of existentialism and external factors, and nothing was internal. It was all show and no go, right? And like you said, one card slips out, that house that folds it down pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're getting into there's the mental health side, there's the purpose side, there's sharing your story, but there's also the business side, right? And so writing a book, I mean, when you think about it, there's kind of two sides as well. There's costs involved, not only in your time, your mental energy, but there's costs involved in creating a book and writing it, right? On the other side, there's potential revenues, there's potential referrals and, speaking stuff and everything. So take me through, has that, now of course I've thought about writing a book, just like a lot of people have, right? But at the same time, one, I'm kind of the same way as far as just like, one, what would I write about it? Two, what the fuck do I know? But also, I mean, you're looking at this from I imagine that at one point you were looking at it from a business perspective and saying, okay, well, how can I not only spread my message bigger, but I mean, this could be a business, right? And so how have you gone about that in, I mean, not only marketing, but I mean, the brand of Jason McLean, right, has gotten, I mean, I've been watching you, and for years, it's kind of been growing. You've been refining this brand that is Jason McLean. So how did you go about that? Is that something you think about, or is it kind of organic?
Yeah. So when I wrote it, like I said, I had lost everything. I had nothing left. Like, I was broke. My Grand Cherokee had been repossessed. Like, I mean, I was literally done. No food in the fridge, like borrowing money, done. And so writing this book was my goal on a couple different levels was to write this book because I do believe, and I know it has, is that I believe that stories can change the world. And I believe that my story is compelling and riveting enough that it will resonate with people. And it has. I've had thousands of people literally reach out to me and tell me that this book has saved their life or helped them, or it's helped their daughter, or whatever it is, all these different things.
Yep. I've read a lot of the reviews.
Yeah. And I'm just talking like even on social media and stuff, like it's crazy. And with that, 76 people so far to date that were in suicidal crisis either saw something that someone shared or whatever, came across something and reached out to me, and I was able to get them to the resources to help them, or to talk with them enough that, like, let's just wait for at least another day. Let's, commit to me that you'll just stay alive a little longer. 76 people. And that comes from people sharing my posts, because I'm talking, these are people in other countries, states, other provinces, like wild stuff. That I'm honored. That is the honor. That is the biggest reward in the world right there. But I do come from a sales background. And so when I wrote this book, so I went through Amazon and Kindle direct publishing. So the reason I chose that is it was zero cost to me. Okay. And I looked at Amazon as the biggest bookstore in the world by far. It has all the marketplaces. And so how it works with them is I write the book and create the cover, put it together, and then I'm paid a royalty on every book. So you look at the cost of printing the book through Amazon, and then what you want to sell it for retail, there's gross profit in that. Now, books, there's not a lot. It's not like selling a home or something, or a big fancy truck, but there's still gross profit in it. So it's a volume game, right? And so what I needed to do was, again, I had no money, so I did as much strategic marketing as I could through social media with, a very small budget at that time, like, a few $100s a month maybe. And I would do what I could to get this out. So a really interesting statistic that was shared with me was that 90% of authors will sell 50 copies or less of their first book.
Not crazy.
I sold 176 copies the first day. So I beat that one. So I was like, okay, this is good. It's a good start.
All right.
Yeah. And so how it works with Amazon is the first 30 days, they will help you in their algorithms when you release a book. So, but everything is charted, graphed, and all these different things. And so within the first week, I had risen into the top 100 books selling on Amazon, which was insane. By the second week, I was in the top 50. By the third week, my book went in the top 5 new releases. I was like, this is crazy. And so I was just going like, and it was, I did a really good job of building it up before it came out, which I'm starting to do with my next book. I'll start to go heavy on posts and clips and different things that tie into this book. And it was just crazy. And so it blew up and it did really well. And I was like addicted to watching, it's like stocks, right? Like this is my personal stock. And so I looked at it from two sides. I'm like, okay, this means that people are buying the book. It's going to help these people, but it also it's a business. And I'm taking an entrepreneurial spirit with this. And how am I going to do this? So the only thing that was a little bit off-putting for me is you had to wait 3 months basically to start getting paid by Amazon. So 3 months later, I wanted it obviously like the end of that month so I could, reinvest back into marketing and continue. But so it took off. It did quite well. And then I was able to start taking the money I was making and reinvesting in social media marketing, boosting posts, reaching different marketplaces. And it started taking off in different marketplaces. I'd be like, it lets me know if people buy it in Brazil. The ebook's only available there. I had someone bought it in Japan. This guy I grew up with, but he lives out there. So I'm like, cool, another marketplace,
Yeah.
And just, knowing people and networking, all of a sudden it's selling in the UK, it's selling in, different kinds. So it was really cool. And USA took off and did pretty well there because I was able to reach it with a lot of boosts and, people sharing. And I'd encourage people to share different things. And so, that started happening. And people were like always posting like when they got my book with a picture, like it was really cool. And I loved it. So I'd always repost these in my stories. There was a time when there'd be like 14 of them in a row. And I was just like, it was really cool. And with that came some opportunities. I was on the news, CTV News. And it was a really awful experience. I mean, it was good, but they scheduled me for like a Monday, and then they couldn't get their Skype working because it was still like weird. You couldn't go in a studio time. So that, I promoted it, and then that didn't happen. And then they like booked me for the following Wednesday, like not the next 2 days, but the week after. And then they called me Wednesday morning to ask me if I'm ready to go. And I'm like, you booked me for next Wednesday. And then they're like, oh, sorry. There's 40 seconds left. Do you want to go on? I'm like, no. No.
I'll see you next week.
And then they called me and asked me if I wanted to do the Friday. And I'm like, sure. And I can't remember the guys. It was his last day. And you could tell he was just like,
oh no.
Yeah. And so I'm staring at a black computer screen while they're live on the news. So they haven't, like, I don't know what they're going to ask me. And so anyways, and again, I talked about like suicide on there, that I attempted to take my life. And that's like a no on the news. And so, then that kind of got like, they aired it, and I got like tons of people reaching out to me, and it was, I replayed it on my social media, and it took off a bit. And so all those things again contributed to book sales and to, furthering my reach.
Yep.
And then I started getting some speaking things. So I started speaking at schools. A different organization would bring me in to talk about mental health or to help people with different things. I started to get hired as a keynote speaker, and all of a sudden, that's, we're talking $700,000, $1,500 an hour.
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And so, it really started to take off. And again, like, very grateful for all these opportunities. And then I started getting on podcasts, like from all over the place, like different countries. And it was just cool, right? And more exposure. And all the while, again, promoting the book. And so basically how it works with Amazon is, you would order the book, and then they make the book, they print the book, they put it together, they ship it, and then I get paid. Yeah, and so it's a decent royalty. I think it's somewhere around 50%, somewhere around there. Yeah. And so I have an ebook, the paperback. I began recording.
I was going to say, when's the audiobook?
Well, I'll tell you. So I had a guy working with me. I was recording it. I got about halfway through, and it's way too hard for me. It's such an emotional book. And I always got a dry throat. I always got an itchy nose. You're in this sound booth, and I'd be like, da-da-da, da-da-da, and I'm like, and I'm like, oh, we got to start again. Or like,
just
I'd be reading, and I'd be like, my nose is itchy. I'd be like thinking about my nose is itchy, and I'd screw a word up. I'm like, and I'm like, so I'm gonna pay a voice actor to do it for me. Both books. So once the Monarch Butterfly Effect comes out, I'll wait for about 3 months, 4 months, because I want to sell. I like selling paperbacks. I'm a book guy, so I like books. Yeah. Then I'll have the audiobooks come out, and I get to now relaunch One Drop of Water again. But because of the fact that, again, Monarch Butterfly Effect is an extension of One Drop of Water, people that will see this book first, because I'll do a heavy marketing launch on it. Yeah. Well, then now it's going to help sales of One Drop of Water come back up again, right? So
it's strategic.
Yeah, 100%. I have, yeah. And so again, it's all part of the plan and part of the purpose. And so I have battle plans for, the marketing and sales part of what I do and my brand, as well as what I do when I speak to people and encourage, and what I do for what I post. But they all have to tie in, and they all have to stay on the same fundamentals, that I'm doing this to help people. For a little while, I got a little bit carried away with more of the finance side of things and that. And I realized that is a slippery slope, and that's not what is the core value of what I'm doing. So I had to, again, get back to my basics, be honest with myself, talk to myself, write it out. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I feeling this way? And again, my ego was starting to creep back in, and I was getting greedy, and, all these different things. And so I had to just, again, that shadow monster was looking for that little crack to get in there and just start to expand. And I had to nullify that quickly and recalibrate, and then, execute a new battle plan. And that's what I did, and got back to the giving of it again, and what it can do to help people. And I know if I'm taking care of people, the rest of the business will take care of me.
Yeah. How do you think about, or how do you go about differentiating yourself within the marketplace?
Well, I think one of the biggest differences is that I'm genuine and that I'm real. I'm not some celebrity that got there for whatever reason. I will be. I've already seen it in my mind. I will be as famous as an author can be, and I'm excited to do that, because I'm going to do it for the right reasons. I think there's a lot of rinse and repeat and regurgitation out there when it comes to self-help and self-development. I think a lot of them, a lot of the bigger names out there don't have much to say. I think they say the same thing over and over again. It's like the 10 of them get together and talk about what they're going to, put in their next book, and they all kind of recite it and that. So, I'm not saying because I've had a hard life that gives me the right to be better than them in some way, but I articulate on truth of experience, and I'm honest about the hardest things I've gone through. And so that resonates with a lot of people, because of the fact that we all go through hard times. We all break down. We all hate ourselves at times in our lives. We all can feel depression or anxiety or all these different aspects of mental illness, whether it's eating disorders or different things. Like, there's so many. And, so there's an aspect of going from pain to pleasure is sort of is something that for marketing is a very is key point. Like, you want to take people out of their pain and offer them something better,
a possibility.
That's right. And so I do that, but I do it in real talk. I don't candy coat stuff. I tell the real deal. And so my market is a little smaller than a lot of the people that just want to hear the Pinteresty sort of, quotes and just high five yourself and count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and your life will be better.
The feel goods.
Yeah. And that stuff works temporarily.
Yep.
The difference for me is my stuff works for life, and I'm living proof of that. And so if I can continue that message to people that I'm still here and I'm still doing it, then that means it's working. And that is power, right? That's powerful enough that it will translate into other people's lives. Their life doesn't have to be the same as mine. They don't have to have gone through what I went through. They could have gone through worse. They could go through way less. But because of the fact that I talk in a language that is truly understandable because of how genuine it is, it will affect people. It'll affect any person the same way, but even though they're different people. And so I'm not going to criticize a lot of the big self-development or self-help people. Like, I love Tony Robbins. T-Dog's my favorite. That guy's the OG of self-help and self-development. That dude walks it and talks it, man. He is my guy. I love him to death. But there are so many other people that have even just tried to, emulate his style.
Yep.
And so, but people love it. They're all bestsellers somehow. And that's life. I'll get there the hard way, and that's my way, and I'm happy about that. I'll put the work. I don't have a team of psychiatrists writing for me. I do all my own research. I do it all, and I'm proud of that. And so that's the difference for me. And I know that I'll be rewarded for that by helping so many people over time. Like, it's growing so fast all the time. And you know what? I wanted to wait about 2-3 years between my books, because I really wanted this to hit as many people and help as many people as possible. And now it's time for the next one, and I'm super excited about it. Like I said, I went from a small budget of what I had before to where I'll be able to, spend thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing and hitting, 100 to 500,000 people's feeds a day. So it's going to be incredible. I can't wait. You know what I mean? And then I get to study all those metrics and statistics and learn from them, what's working, what's failing. And, that's the biggest key in whether it's business or in development for yourself. You have to understand that failure is your friend. Failure is the best fucking teacher on the planet.
If you learn from it.
If you allow yourself to learn from it.
I'm a slow learner.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, man, once I learned to embrace my fears and my failures, I became unstoppable. And don't get me wrong, I still have my challenges all the time. But I truly believe that what I'm doing is going to happen the way I believe it's going to happen. I don't need to see it to believe it. I believe it to see it. And I'm telling you, man, this book is going to go huge. That book is going to go huge. And the reason it's going to do that is because it's real, it's honest, it's genuine, and it will help people, and that's the best.
We've recently had a friend of ours commit suicide.
Yeah.
One of the happiest, well, on the outside guys, for people to see, but inside just absolutely dying. How do we, what's a way that we can, I don't know, that we can get the message out there, or that we can, until it really hits you, you don't really think about it. And if it's not in your life, is there some tools? Is there signs? Is there anything like that people can be aware that may help them with those around them that could be struggling?
Yeah. Difficult question. And sadly, it often takes a really difficult situation to awake us to it. So I will speak from my experience. I was the stand-up chameleon, right? It's a chapter in my book. I'm always the funny guy. I'm always got the jokes. I always look good on the outside, and I could adapt and mold myself to whatever scenario and group I was with. I wanted to make sure other people didn't feel how I felt on the inside. So I was always getting the laughs and always doing the wild stuff and being the story and all those different things. And our friend was much like that.
Yeah.
There's a famous guy named Robin Williams that one of my favorite actors. I was his bodyguard while he was here years ago filming a movie. And spending time with Robin Williams, I didn't know which Robin Williams was Robin Williams. The one that was acting, or the guy in the movies was really him, or the guy in person, he was acting. And I looked into Robin Williams' eyes, and I will tell you this, Dan, they were the saddest eyes I've ever seen in my life. And the only other time I ever saw eyes that sad was the day before I was going to take my life. I was there. I was dead. They're dead eyes. And I don't want to speak too much about Robin Williams, but he was in a really bad place at the time when he was here, battling a number of different demons. And when people come and talk to him, he was like, hey, blah, 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 and whatever character he needed to be. And the second people were gone and the light was there, the deadest eyes, the saddest guy. He's just a little hairy guy. And that dude lined up 10 shots of tequila and went like this, bang, bang, like a train. And then 10 more, bang, 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 and just stood there. Like the guy's like 5'4", man. Like if I did that, I would be, first of all, like cross-eyed vomiting and then passed out, or like insane drunk, like, you know. And it was so sad to see. But back to the thing is that there's a lot of people out there that are really depressed, or they're battling whatever demons, but they're great actors. And I was one of them. And I think our friend was a one too. You know, he loved to, again, he was always the story. He was always the show. He was always the light. And I had talked with him a few times previously. You know, it's heartbreaking. I wish I could have helped him. I do hold guilt for that, but you know, just one sec here. But I didn't have any way of knowing. But there definitely were signs that I've heard from other people. You know, he had lost a lot of weight. He had changed a number of things, you know, behaviors, different things. I didn't see him in the last, you know, few months. So I didn't get to see any of those things. But I, like Preston, didn't let anybody know on the outside. There's a few people that, you know, had some suspicions that I was, you know, obviously getting close. You know, I was talking about, my jokes were all about killing myself. You know, it's nothing to joke about.
Yeah.
So I would tell you, if someone's joking about that kind of stuff, start to take it serious. I became very reclusive. I lost weight myself. I had lost probably 10, 15 pounds because I wasn't eating. I was just drinking.
Yeah. I
wasn't taking care of myself. I had dark circles under my eyes. I was always, I definitely was snapping a lot more. So behaviors change. But if people start wanting to give away stuff, you know, like things that mean a lot to them, that's a pretty good tell. Change of behavior, change in demeanor for sure, change in the physicality and the look. But the sad thing is that it's different for everybody. You know, there's people that you think are so depressed and lonely, and they'll never do it. And then there's those people like, you know, myself and Robin Williams or Preston, and we did it. Or, you know, I survived, but they both did not. And so it's a tough one. It's a real tough one, man. But all I can tell you is check in with your friends, be annoying. I don't care, you know, because if you don't and they go, you'll never have that chance. And that hurts a lot. And, you know, that's the insanity of depression. It creates a persona and a different identity within you. It's like a parasite that eats at your brain and your soul, and it kills your mind, and you start to believe these horrible things, these atrocious thoughts that, you know, what you're going to do is going to benefit people by leaving this world. And it's so fucked. And I was there, and, it's just, but I hit it very well, and so the best thing I can say is just love your people, man. Just be relentless with it. Don't give up on people. If people are annoying, or you do see someone, even if you think it's for attention, at least, do put your effort in, find out if it is real or not. Take that extra time just to let them know that you're there, because that could be the difference. Really, truly could. But sadly, there's no textbook on this one. It changes from individual to individual. So,
if you had the opportunity to talk to 18-year-old Jason McLean, what are the top few things that you?
Well, the talk would start with this. A couple of those.
Well, first you probably dodge one.
Yeah, there'd be a lot. It'd be quite a battle, because I'm pretty slow now compared to how fast and crazy and scrapping I was when I was 18. But what would I say to my 18-year-old self? Well, that's a tough one, because I had to go through all the things I went through from when I was 18 to now to be where I am, and to be influencing people in such a dramatically positive way, in a life-changing way. And that's a lot of responsibility, and I wear that badge of honor like fucking Superman, And but the other part would be like, man, do you got to make it this hard to get here? But there's a quote, and I'll paraphrase it because I'll butcher it. But if you were to go back and change all these things about yourself, you wouldn't be who you are today, right?
Yep.
And so it's very true. And I mean, I went through my life. I've lived like a rock star, man. Like, for real. Like, it's been a wild life.
Yep.
A wild life. And so I've had a lot of incredible, wild, fun moments that people wouldn't believe if I told them. And I've had some of the darkest, scariest moments that people do believe me now because I have told them.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's a tough one, right? Because I love who I am today, and I love where I'm at, and everything in my life is where it should be, because I've worked so fucking hard for it to be where it is right now. And I've called upon all those moments from 18-year-old Jason and all the mistakes he made along the way. Those weakest moments have become my power plant and my power resource for my strength today. So I don't know if I would have done it differently. Would I be sitting here with you doing this incredible podcast, talking about this powerful stuff that we need to talk about for people to hear? It's a really tough question. But I'd probably bitch slap 18-year-old Jason a few times and just be like, dude, okay, here's a few things not to do. I can't say them on here. But, please, man, make it a little bit easier for me. Just a couple things, So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. When I think of that, I don't know if I would have the ears to hear it.
Yeah.
And really even understand.
So true.
But at the same time, I was able to tell a friend of mine who is older than me in fire college.
Yeah.
And I was probably making an ass of myself. And he said, you know what, Dan, when you get older, you'll understand. And we were fighting at the time. And that's all he said.
Yeah.
Is just, when you get older, you'll understand.
Did you?
I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I did, it hit me hard.
Yeah.
But okay, this is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Winnipeg a little bit.
Okay.
We'll switch gears here. So what are the pros and cons of being based in Winnipeg?
Okay. Well, I'll be honest. The support I've gotten from the media in Winnipeg, fucking brutal. You know what? I'm a straight white 50-something-year-old man that wrote a book about mental health, and nobody cares. If I would have been a few other different things that I won't mention,
yep,
this book would probably be nominated for the Governor General's Award for Best Book. I'd be all over CBC. I mean, I was on CBC for a show talking about depression, but, just the exposure would have been something else. And that is not just Winnipeg. I think it's a little bit Canada right now.
North America.
Yeah. Yep. But I will say this. I love Winnipeg. I've lived here a long time. I've moved away a number of times and come back. But Winnipeg, sadly to me, has a lot of cynical people. There's a lot of people looking to help and promote and be positive too. But I find that it's especially with the crowd that I'm trying to break through with, it's tough. It's tough. Nobody wants to admit that they have mental health issues. And I understand that. I fought it my whole life. I did my best to retire as many psychiatrists and psychotherapists as I could along the way.
Yeah.
But Winnipeg is a small, big city. It's a small town.
Yeah.
But I love it here at the same time. And I take that, and I don't want people to take it the wrong way when I say that there's a lot of people that are cynical here. I think there's a lot of people that have not gone after enough, or they've backed down from going after what they truly wanted. And to me, that's an opportunity that I can help. So there's a lot of potential here also because of that, because it is a small community. But I find it's very cliquey, and it's tough to break through into newfound territories. I've found for sure.
Yeah.
All the charity places, talking about mental health, they always have the same people speaking constantly. They don't bring in new people. That's challenging for me to understand at times,
Well, it's a comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. And, some radio personality guys is pretty good. And, again, it's a name and people know it. So it's that or whatever it is. I love the Winnipeg Jets. So I love that about Winnipeg. I grew up loving them. It broke my heart when they left. I was so pumped when they came back. I still love them. I know that was a tough heartbreak. Man, I just listened to like Hellebuck and Lowry and those guys talk, and they're just so heartbroken and dismantled right now. I wish I could give them all big hugs, even though they're way bigger dudes than me. But it's tough. It's really tough. And I hope our marketplace understands that, for them. Love those guys to death. I love the team. So I love that about Winnipeg. I love the summers here. I love the people for the most part here. It's pretty cool. I will say that because of the fact I'm from Winnipeg, I think that a lot of the initial sales of my books were from the fact that I know so many people here. So that is a benefit.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, Winnipeg's home, right? And I don't know for how much longer, but for the next few years anyway. I'll call Winnipeg home and use it as my home base. It's funny explaining Winnipeg to people that, in California or, somewhere in Florida or wherever, or Mexico, and you try to explain what Winnipeg is, and they just, they don't quite get.
You got to experience it. If you truly want to know,
yeah.
You got to experience.
And that's what I tell them, right?
Both sides of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I show them pictures of like our winter, and they're just like, no, I die. I'm like,
I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's what makes us so tough as Winnipeggers, right? Is the fact that we go through this humid continental climate zone every year. Extreme heat, extreme cold. It's wild, but it makes us tough as nails, or it breaks us, one or the other.
Gotta say, living on the streets in Winnipeg,
it was tough. Winters were terrifying.
It's not the same as living on the streets in San Francisco or Florida.
Yeah, when the first time I went to Hawaii, man, I was like, I could live here I'm
not going back.
Yeah, I don't need a job. I can literally eat coconuts, catch fish, and like just do like the castaway thing, man. Talk to volleyball. I'd be cool. Yeah. It's beautiful there. So, same in Mexico. It'd be a little tougher in Mexico maybe, but yeah, it's so, Winnipeg has a lot of potential. But I do think that there needs to be a lot of turnaround on positivity. I think it's a place that can get negative really quick. So it takes, bright shining lights like ourselves to get out there and lead by example and and some people like it and will follow it, and other people will be envious of it, and that's their problem, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned Mr. B. You mentioned your dad.
Yeah.
Are there other big influences in your life? Whether it's people, books, places, or other mentors that have made big impacts on you.
Sure. Growing up, Wolverine from the X-Men comic book, I
can see
loved
that.
him. Wanted to be him.
Yeah.
Still do.
Yeah.
Still try to get those claws out constantly.
I get it.
Not there yet.
Yeah.
I guess I gotta get some adamantium on my.
For the adamantium.
Yeah. I heal pretty good. Like I thought, like I Wolverined after that motorcycle accident. I like
stands right up.
Yeah. I was like, maybe soon. But yeah, like I definitely identified. I loved comic books growing up. I was a huge comic book geek. Still am.
Mine was Superman.
Yeah. Cool.
Good man.
Yeah. Greatest man of all. Wolverine I liked because he was like an anti-hero, right? He was like right on that cusp.
Yeah.
He was he's badass and he's really tough and he's burly, but he took care of the people he loved, and he always fought for the good. So Wolverine was like a hero growing up. I still love the guy, still love the comic books, I love the movies, all the stuff. Mr. Burnett for sure, big hero for me. Terry Fox was a huge hero when I was a kid. Still contribute to the Terry Fox run to this day. I think it's a really important thing. My dad was my biggest hero. My dad got sober when I was 11, changed his life. You know what? Like there's two versions of my dad growing up. There was, my drunk dad, who was a horrible drunk. And then there was, when he was sober, was an incredible, passionate, loving father. But he just battled so bad in between those two identities.
Right.
When he got sober, man, I watched that guy convulsing on the floor, puking, shakes from, like, my dad drank, man. Like, my dad would chug like Mickey of whiskey on the way home, drink 12 beers, and then chug a 2.6 of rye to go out.
Jeez.
Yeah, for real though. And like that's Tuesday, man.
Yeah.
I was like 7, 8 years old. And when he quit, I watched that guy going through the shakes, like literally like he was having seizures, and like crying, like, what do I do to help you? And like, he's get the fuck away from me. And like, cause he was embarrassed and crazy. So when he got sober, my life changed so much, and we became best friends. And, I always looked up, like I didn't know any different growing up. So he was just my dad. He was my man, but he will always reign supreme as the ultimate Superman in my life. I was just talking to a person going through some hardship because their mom had died of cancer just recently. And, I told him, I said, it's been almost about 1.5 years now, coming up on 2 years that my dad died of cancer, and Jets games are a thing. And so every single Jets game I break down because I want to call him and, talk shit about whatever players on the other team. And that was just our thing. And I shared that with him, and I said, you know what, like, but sometimes it's fun. Sometimes I laugh about it. Like, I can't call this guy, like, what the hell, man? But like, other times, like, I got to go in the other room, and deal with it. But other than those guys, you know what? I look to a number of my friends. Like Jay Miller is a solid dude. I love that guy. He's a bit of he's younger than me, but he's a bit of a big brother to me for sure. That guy had my back when I decided to go into recovery and self-actualization and self-discovery and figure my shit out and do all this. So he's a definite role model for me. He's just such a good dude on so many levels.
I agree.
Yep. Yeah. And, but other than that, like, I take bits and pieces from everybody. I think that's what's important in life, is that you can meet someone and talk to them for 30 seconds, and you can be influenced by them more than someone you might know for 30 years, right? If you're listening and you got your eyes open and you believe that there's a reason for everything and that there's miracles happening around you all the time, like I said, you can you could be so positively influenced or negatively influenced by someone if you allow them to, just talking to them, for 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So, but I try to take it a little bit from everybody, and I try to give a little bit back. I think that's what's important.
You knew that you were coming here?
I did. In fact, I came here 2 days early. I was so excited.
Yes, you did. You've been here ever since.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't? Anything that you wanted
Absolutely
to talk
not.
about or share that I should have?
You asked everything that should have been asked. 100%. Anything else that I would like to share? I would like to share that I'm absolutely so thankful that you invited me on here. And it came from a bit of a tough spot. You saw me at Preston's funeral. And I do believe that what that illustrates is the miracle of opportunity. Because although it was something heartbreaking and catastrophic for so many people, it provided an opportunity for this. And that's what life, if you believe it, can do. And so I want to share that, saw you at Earl's after and lunch and all that. And then, and then this came about. And if you believe enough that there's continuous miracles working all the way, everywhere around you, they will continue to happen. And this is one of them. And I'm very thankful that you reached out and that we got to do this, because this was powerful, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. So first of all, anyone listening and or watching, first of all, share anything that means anything to you. We're looking at the camera. But how can people find you? And then second, how can we help you share your message?
So the easiest way to find me, my website, jasontylermclean.com. It'll be going through a big upgrade right away. But on there's some landing pages and different things for contact and all that. My Instagram is Jason Tyler McLean. So I'm pretty active on there. Facebook, not so much. And so if you follow me or you go onto those things, there's an email availability on my website. If you're struggling, if you're going through something, if you need to talk to someone, message me on there. I have helped, like I said, literally thousands of people, whether it's just listening to them. And I want to say this, if you do not apologize to me that you're reaching out to talk or to share or to ask for help. It breaks my heart more than anything, man. Especially dudes. I get so many dudes reach out to me and they always apologize that they're asking me for help or asking. Don't apologize. I'm inviting you in, man. Like this world can be hard. This world can be brutal. I don't have all the answers, but at least if maybe we can, whatever. So Jason Tyler McLean is my Instagram. I have had countless firefighters before this and after this tragic event reach out to me over the last couple of years. Law enforcement guys, prison guards, paramedics. It's a tough life for them.
Yep.
It's a tough life for everybody. So there's no shame in my mental health game. So I will talk to you. As far as helping me get my message out there, when I post things, share it. If you think it resonates, if you think it could help someone, if you think it, I like to always think of it like this. I look at things and I'm like, if I was in a bad spot, would this help me? And then if it does, I share it.
Yep.
I share other people's stuff too sometimes. I've had people message me and ask me to share stuff, and I have. I think it's important that we share things that could potentially save people's lives. And I ain't lying when I tell you that my posts have helped save people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's not just me, that's the team, that's everybody, right? That's people that are friends of mine or followers or whatever. You're a follower, you're a friend of mine. You know, they have the courage to share this stuff because sometimes it's not an easy share. And so that's probably the biggest way. Obviously, if you want to support my books, you can go onto Amazon. Again, available in 13 marketplaces, so you should be covered, whoever's listening. There's the ebooks on Kindle on Amazon, or the paperbacks will be there. Yeah, and as far as speaking, again, you can contact me through my Instagram account or from my website, jasontylermclean.com, or Jason Tyler McLean on Instagram. And yeah, that's it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I told you when I first saw you at the funeral.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I think that I like it so much just because you're so raw about it. You're real. And I think that that's what connects and probably resonates most with myself and probably with everyone else that can hear your message. So keep going. I know that it's making a difference. I really appreciate you being here, and come back anytime.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back.
All right, brother.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.